Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tanisha Wood. So today I have Larhonda with me, and I wanted to have Larhonda on because I think she has such a great attitude when it comes to dating. Like, she's really open and really uses dating as a tool to figure out what she likes and what she doesn't. And she still keeps this attitude despite having been through a really crazy situation with her ex where she moved to a completely different country to be with him. And then she found out that he had been lying about the fact that he had kids. So we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. Hi, Larhonda.
Hello, Tanisha. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you.
I was watching your YouTube channel and you just have all these great stories about just dating in general. But what I like is that you seem to have a lot of fun with it. You try to learn from each person that you go out with and really help yourself figure out what it is you want more of and what it is you don't. So I appreciate when people have fun with dating.
Like, especially when you know you're going to be doing it for a while, to make it a chore and put a certain feeling on it that, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happening to me. You know, if you use it as an opportunity to learn something about yourself and your needs and your wants, and understand that everybody that you go out with is not necessarily going to be the love of your life, as difficult as that may be to do that process over and over again, if you try to learn something from it and look on the brighter side of things, you tend to have a better outlook on, dating in general. I've had some bad experiences, but I don't let it get me down.
I watched your video about dating a man that was a little bit older, and it was your first experience dating somebody. I think you said he was maybe like 17 years or something like that older.
Years, yeah. That was interesting, though.
So I didn't finish it yet because I wanted to hear the ending from you. So the part I left off on was you guys went on like a second date, sort of island hopping on a boat. And it sounded like things were going well, but tell us a little bit more about that situation.
I had met him many years ago hiking in El Yunque. There was nothing in particular about him at that time that I said, oh, he's an attractive man or something like that. It just was like, oh, he's nice. And then I ran into him, I would say probably a couple weeks later at another event. And he sort of made a comment to me like, oh, you clean up nice, and that always kind of sat in the back of my mind as a low-key flirt kind of thing. But then I didn't see him again for, I would say, probably another good 4 years or so. And I ran into him at another brunch thing that we were doing. There's a dinner club. So I met him at one of those, and I sat down and we started talking and stuff. And so after that was over, I had his number from the WhatsApp group, and I messaged him and said, I'd like to get together and exchange some ideas, whatever. In my mind, not thinking it was a date because we were doing a lot of conversation at the party about business and things like that. So I just kind of wanted to continue that conversation. So he got back to me and he was like, I would love to. I'm going out with some friends right now, but I'll get back to you and see if we can, connect. So a couple hours later, he writes me back and he's like, I'm finished, so I can pick you up by 7. And when he said pick me up, I knew that he might have been thinking this was more than a date. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just be open to whatever. Mm-hmm. So he comes, he picks me up, we go out to dinner and all that. So
wait, Larhonda, what if he was the killer? Why'd you have him pick you up?
Well, because I had known of him and I've known of him, like I know people that know him and all that kind of stuff. One thing I will always say whenever you're online dating and stuff and you haven't necessarily met somebody in person, never meet them at your house.
Right.
Yeah, so we got together, we went out on the first date. That was kind of the first date for me was not that great because he's one of those people that likes to talk about himself and maybe kind of cut me off when I start talking and stuff like that. So the first date for me was like, meh. But he messaged me later on that evening and said, he realized that he did a lot of the talking and stuff. So I felt like, okay, well, maybe he's very emotionally aware. And
at least you recognized it.
Yeah. So I said, okay, if he wants to go out again, we can go out. So that's when we started planning this whole, birthday trip or whatever. And so we ended up going down to the south of the island the day after my birthday and just rented a boat and did this whole like little island hopping on some of the islands off the coast of Ponce. And it was so nice. We actually had conversation that didn't involve him cutting me off and stuff like that. So I was like, okay.
I love this for a second date though. Like I love this whole idea. I love it that a man is planning out a full day. I say that's the number one complaint that I hear from women when it comes to just dating is men never have a plan. It's like they'll generally meet them on an app or something and then it'll be decided that they're going to go out and it'll come to the day of and then there's a whole, well, what do you want to do? Well, what do you want to do? It's like, well, if you ask me out, why don't you have a plan in mind or something?
Exactly.
Like, it's not that it has to be this grandiose thing or island hopping, but great if it is.
Right.
But just have a plan. And if I don't like the plan, I'll let you know, but come to the table with something. But anyway, go on. Sorry, just needed that. That was a PSA.
Amen. No, amen, honey, because let me tell you, it is so exhausting. Like a lot of times when you're making the conversation and then when you decide to get together, then you got to kind of come up with where you're going to go. It's like a lot of times, like it gets exhausting when you're feeling like you're kind of carrying the weight of everything, whether it's like keeping in contact or making the decision of where we're going to meet and when and all that. So this was truly a breath of fresh air. Number one, that he wanted to do something so extravagant and nice for me, which I'm not always used to when it comes to, second dates. And that he, was willing to take the time and kind of go out of his way to like come get me. And, it wasn't like, okay, well, let's just meet up in Ponce. He drove to my house away from where we needed to go to pick me up and then go back towards where we were going. So like there was a lot of effort on his part.
Do you think that has anything to do with his age? Like him planning things out so thoroughly and thinking about it in that way? Do you think if he were younger, it would have been a little bit different in terms of the planning and the coordinating and picking you up and all that?
I think it depends on how the person was raised, and how they see dating. Like, do you see it as, a possible investment in a, future relationship, or do you see it as just something that you're doing to kind of get to know somebody or whatever? Like, I think it depends. It could be his age. I'm really not sure,
Yeah.
but
that's a really good point, actually, how they view it. Like, is this something that you are investing in for the future? You're right.
It turned out to be a lovely day from like 6 o'clock in the morning until we spent the whole day down there just going around to the different islands. He taught me how to drive a boat. I'm not like a water person per se. Like I learned how to swim very late in life. So like being around boats and water and stuff like that was just never a part of my experience. And so he taught me a lot about that. So that was a beautiful thing about the date. I learned something new. I got out of my comfort zone because like on some of these little small islands, there's no one else there. And, and this may have been like a ploy or whatever, but he said to me, yeah, I'm going to challenge you to take off your top. And honestly, this is something that I had always wanted to do. You know, I had always wanted to go to a topless beach or some kind of nude beach, not because, just because I felt like it was like a freeing and new experience. So this was like, okay, in the back of my mind, even though I know this guy might just be trying to look at my breasts, um, you know, I should just do this because this may be my, opportunity to do something I've always wanted to do.
So you were doing it for you, not for him.
Right.
Which either way made the outcome of it was already going to be positive because it was for you.
Exactly. Absolutely. And so I did it. And it was amazing. And then once that was over, we got back in the boat, went and had some lunch and walked around the city, enjoyed each other's company, just chit-chatting and talking about whatever, laughing and joking. Like we just had a really, really nice time. We even kissed a little bit. It was really nice. And I was absolutely shocked at how good I felt about things from the first date versus the second date.
With that being said about, the transition from the first date to the second, do you generally try to give people a chance after the first date, even if it wasn't what you were expecting or if you thought there wasn't an immediate connection?
It depends on the person and the vibe that I'm getting after the botched first date. So, like, if I feel like the first date was, just okay, and maybe there was some nerves or some reasoning behind why it was just okay, then I may give it a second chance. But if it was a complete disaster and utter failure from the beginning, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to give that a second chance because, why should we waste our time?
So what happened after that second date, after the islands?
So we had a conversation the next day. He started the confessional. And in the confessional, where he called me up and he's like, yeah, so I have a lady that, I've kind of deal with in another country. And when I go down there for business, she kind of helps me out with some of the things I'm working on. And, we are we have a thing. She kind of is interested in me and she wants to come and visit me in a couple of weeks. In my mind, if someone's going to get on a plane to come see you, there's a little bit more there than just business partners.
Right.
And the reasoning behind, too, my suspicion of things was because after our second date, the reason why we couldn't get together right away was because he had told me he's going down to this other country and he's going to be there for a week and he won't be able to be as much in contact. And so I thought that was weird.
Right. Like they don't take your phone for a week.
Right. And once your business is over at, 6 or 7 o'clock, or you've done your business dinner, there's time to check in with somebody at home. Right. So when he said that, I didn't really think anything of it then. But when he started this confessional after our second date, then that's when I got curious. And I'm like, well, are you sleeping with this lady? And he says, yes.
Well, I'm glad you asked.
I'm like, right. I'm like, oh my God, pump the brakes. But that wasn't the only one. There is another lady that he is, that is an ex that he's still friends with. That didn't bother me so much. Like, I don't care so much about people being friends with their exes. But since he was confessing, I'm like, okay, but then he told me about another lady that he's also kind of seeing here on the island. So all of this means that I'm like possibly third, maybe fourth wheel.
I will say I appreciate it. And I thought that the timing was really great on his part. Like I appreciate, okay, we went out the first time, didn't know what it was going to be, could be. We go out a second time, spend an entire day together and we kiss, there's a connection. And now I think it is a good time to share other situations that I have. So I appreciate above all the honesty in that moment.
I agree 100% because it allows me to then make the decision of whether I want to continue this situation or not. However, how it ended up going was when I told him that I, prefer to be monogamous and, that I wanted him to go ahead with the things that he was doing. And, if those things didn't work out or whatever, then we could maybe come back and kind of start this up again or whatever. But he started calling me possessive. And, because I told him, well, I don't really share well. Like, I'm not one of these people that, can be on the side while your other woman comes to visit you. Because I know how I'm going to feel about that when if we're in a situation and I want to see him, but he's going to tell me, oh, well, my other woman, is in town right now, so I'm not going to be able to see you this week. And that's not really going to sit right with me per se, even though we're brand new and stuff. But I don't know. It didn't really feel like what I wanted.
Which is also important that you knew that you were like immediately, thanks for letting me know. But in already knowing myself, I don't even need to try this to know that it's probably not for me.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But he ended up saying that he thought I was being possessive and all, he turned my want for monogamy into a negative thing. Like I wanted to possess him and keep him from all others and all that kind of stuff. But, we weren't to that point yet. But then I also don't necessarily want to be a party to like me possibly falling in love with somebody when he's kind of just interested in being with any and everybody that he maybe has some interest in or whatever. That's probably not a fair way of saying it, but if he wants to be polyamorous and enjoy this stage of his life, then that's fine. But I also don't want to be a party to it. And I also don't want to be, seen as the bad guy because I want a monogamous relationship that it just includes me and the man that I'm getting to know. About a month or so went by and we didn't see each other or talk to each other. And he kind of like messaged me and we went on one last date. And this was just before the coronavirus shutdown happened and whatever. And I was already pretty like closed off to the situation mentally, but I agreed to go out with him just to see if we could have a conversation and come to some understanding of what we both wanted and where this was going to go. And so we went to lunch, we talked and everything, but like the affection and whatever that you would think would have been there from the second date was not for me. And I think he picked up on it.
It wasn't there based on the fact that he told you about these other women?
Absolutely, because when you let your walls down and you think that this person really has an interest in getting to know you for the possibility, because we had talked about it, for the possibility of us making a relationship or getting to know each other for a relationship, but there's all these other distractions in the background. And I know at the time I was only dating him, but he would be distracted kind of dating me, talking to the one girlfriend and the other lady and the other lady, and so it's like, how are we gonna, if I'm focusing all of my time on him, but his time is all divided and whatnot, I kind of want, even though he seemed to be a high effort type of guy, I didn't want the divided attentions, I guess.
Right.
And maybe that's selfish, but like, I'm a woman of a certain age here. Like, I want someone who wants to get to know me and spend the effort needed to get to know me, which is a lot of effort, because I have a lot of facets and a lot of things about me. So, it's worth focusing on, just like for me, it was worth focusing on just him. And I want somebody to focus just on me. And that might sound crazy and selfish, but that's just how I feel about it,
It does not at all. I think everybody
Yeah.
has the right to the type of relationship they want.
After that, it kind of ended, and I'm still thankful to this day for the experience that we had. Like I said, he taught me things. He got me out of my comfort zone. He helped me to understand that, maybe I can have a connection with someone that's older. Cause I mean, I was dead set against it. Like, I'm 41. I was like, if I'm not going over 50, cause that's crazy, but, but now I'm like, okay, well, maybe there, if I see a hot, 50 something guy, maybe I can give it a shot and see where it goes. Like, I have nothing to lose.
Is your ultimate goal marriage? Like, is that something you want to do?
I do.
Have you ever been married?
I have. I was married to my son's father. We got divorced, but I would like to get married again and have a nice long-term partnership and build a nice life together with someone. So that's my ultimate goal. But, if I end up in a long-term relationship that's loving and caring or whatever, uh no, no, never mind. Scratch that. I want to get married again. So no, I'm not going to say that I would settle for a long term. No, I want to get married again.
You got it. The first step to getting anything you want is understanding it, knowing it, and being a 100% upfront and unapologetic about it. So
that's right.
Speak it into existence. You ended up in Puerto Rico because of your son's father. So how did you guys meet and what happened in that relationship?
Okay, so my son's father is from the Dominican Republic, and I actually met him back in 2006 when I went on a family vacation. And we met at the resort where we were staying. And, I was 26 at the time, really young and like really just kind of being free and all that kind of stuff. So when I saw him, he was working the egg station, right? So at the resort.
Like where they make the omelets?
Yes, yes. And he had like the most brilliant smile. He flashed it and I was just like, boop, 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 like my heart started. Yeah, exactly. And so we kind of talked a little bit. At that time, I didn't speak any Spanish. He didn't speak any English. So, like in my 41-year-old mind today, I know that there's that probably was doomed from the beginning. But in my 26-year-old mind, I'm like, oh, this is a challenge that I can, figure out how to overcome. No problem.
You were like, love only speaks one language.
That's right. That's right. Where's the dictionary? Let me get me a dictionary and get this thing started. So because this was 2006, so the first iPhone, I think either hadn't come out yet or maybe was just out and I didn't have it. So there was no Google Translate that I could use in the moment. So I had to find a dictionary. And when we talked to each other, we decided to exchange numbers. He called me to my room or something. And we made a plan to meet up. So we met up and sat on the beach and talked or whatever, as best as two people who don't speak the language could talk.
I was going to say, what were y'all talking about?
It was a whole lot of hand gestures and like, okay, wait a minute, let me see how I say this, in flipping through the dictionary and trying to decipher things.
It's even funnier because it's like an actual dictionary and not a phone.
Yes, actual dictionary with pages and everything. And I'm like, okay. But you know what? It was well worth it because we were able to, get some conversation going anyway. And we ended up hanging out. We hung out every day. And then by the time the end of the vacation happened, we exchanged like actual phone numbers, like contact information so we could stay in contact. And that was July of 2006. And then in December of that same year, I went back to the Dominican Republic and went to visit he and his family.
So this whole time, were you guys talking like from July to December when you went back?
What I would do was jump on the phone and be sitting in front of my laptop with Google Translate open. And that's how I was able to, converse more with him. And I'll tell you what, like they always say, if you want to learn a new language, get a lover in that language. And that is the God's honest truth. That is one of the best advices that anybody could ever give, because it's very true. How I learned the Spanish that I know today is out of necessity and being able to talk and have that relationship with him and his family and all that kind of stuff. So I learned a lot. And then when I went down there in December, I stayed for a couple weeks. I met his mother and all these, the people that he said were important in his life. That is going to be important later in the story.
Okay.
So we had a great time. And then, so I guess it was probably about 6 or 8 months later, I decided that I was going to move to the Dominican Republic. So I moved down there and I talked to my work and asked them, would it be cool if I just work remotely for the foreseeable future? And they were like, fine, no problem. So I went down to the Dominican Republic with my laptop and my suitcase and my dogs. We got an apartment together and all that kind of stuff and just kind of set up a life or whatever. And then we decided that we were going to get married.
Now, at this point, are you guys both, is he like fluent in English? You fluent in Spanish, so communication is better?
I knew more Spanish by this time. He never really learned English. I did more of the learning of Spanish. So I became more fluent in Spanish to have these conversations and be able to say what I needed to say. And then, especially living in the Dominican Republic is very different than living here, because here you have a lot more English speakers. And then in the DR, it's not as many English speakers. So you're forced to learn and your ear becomes much more trained to the language and to learning things. So we ended up getting married and going through this whole process, getting all the paperwork and stuff. That was in July of 2007 when we got married.
So like about a year after you guys met.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
When you guys decided to get married, did you at that point think, this is it? This is my forever. I've never found a love like this.
I wouldn't go that far.
Why did you guys make the decision to get married? Like, why not just, stay living together, getting to know each other and seeing where it went?
I think at the time I felt like I didn't want to necessarily be living in the Dominican Republic forever. And the only way that we were going to be able to move back to the States and kind of like getting things together would have been through either getting married or doing the fiance visa. And that would have been how we would have been able to get to the US and kind of build up from there. The Dominican Republic at that time felt for me like as soon as I opened my mouth, and people could hear my accent, prices would go up and, people would automatically start trying to take advantage of me. So it became really uncomfortable for me. And also at this time, there were a lot of power outages and infrastructure things going on. So it wasn't super comfortable to live there. So I didn't want to stay there forever. And so as much as I loved the experience, I think I was ready to start making a life outside of the DR and kind of moving our relationship to the next level. So I knew that it was going to be a long process and all that of the immigration stuff.
Wait, what did your family think about this? Because at this point, they know you all went to DR last year on vacation. You met this guy. Then a couple months later, you moved to the DR to be with him. Now you're getting married. Are they like, what is happening? Or are they completely on board?
They were on board with the moving part. The marriage part, nobody knew about.
Oh.
Yes, it was a secret marriage. I did not tell my family. My family is very religious. So I didn't want, if the relationship didn't work out, this is my 26-year-old mind talking, right? So if the relationship didn't work out, I would be able to quietly get a divorce and nobody would know, but what ended up happening was I ended up getting pregnant. And so then that's when I ended up telling my mother, okay, Ma, okay, first of all, I got married in the Dominican Republic and I'm pregnant, so I had to break the news to her after I got pregnant because then I knew there was kind of no turning back.
You can't really hide a baby.
No. So, that's how that ended up going down. And she ended up being fine with it because she knew that I was stable and that, the baby was going to be fine. It wasn't like I was going to have any problems raising my child or anything like that. And so she was comfortable with it after she knew. But yeah, I kept it a secret for a while just because I didn't want to hear all the judgments and, oh, well, are you sure that he loves you for you? Because I had been hearing a lot of that stuff. Back then, I used to go on these message boards to help me with the immigration process. And there was a lot of people that would come on there asking for advice, and you would have people telling them, girl, you know, your man just wants you because of the money, and he's not really interested in you, and the next plane load of women is coming in, and he'll be on to the next. And so there was all this negativity around it. And so to kind of avoid hearing all of that from people that I was close to, I just didn't tell anybody, because I didn't want people to change my mind about what I was doing or put fear into me about what I was doing. So I just kept it all to myself until I absolutely had to tell them. Once I did tell them, they supported me, and he came to the States. After a while, it took him about a year and a half, I think it was, to finally get to the States. So November 2008, just 1 month after my son was born, in October of that same year, he was able to get to the States. And that's when I started getting these funny phone calls from like people that I didn't know. And one of them told me something about that he had some children. Now, all of the time that I was living there, I never saw any children, but there was this one little thing. And you know how you have like a sixth sense inside of you that
Yep.
something is off?
Yep.
I
That
knew
never lies.
it is so true. It is so true. I knew something was off. I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't have any evidence, but like I knew all of his other brothers and sisters had kids and multiple kids, and he was the only one that just didn't have any. I thought that was strange. And then when I got back to the States, and he got there, and somebody called my phone and said that he had just had a baby, and I was like, what? You know, like, what?
Prior to this, when you were living in DR, did you ever ask him? Like, did you ever say, do you have kids? Or did you ever confront him with these suspicions?
Yes, I absolutely did. I asked him. He told me, no, absolutely not. I don't have any kids. I asked other people. I asked around to, different people to see if I could get any kind of story. They also lied. One of the things that, happens in a lot of these situations when you marry someone abroad or overseas or whatever is that the family will sort of help people cover up things that they don't want you to know, so that that person doesn't decide that they don't want to be in the relationship. And so later on, when we had the conversation again, after all the anger and shock of the whole thing passed, which was years later after the divorce.
When you guys then moved back to the States, you started getting phone calls that he had just had a baby. And then when you confronted him with that, did he confirm that?
He still tried to lie about it at that point. He ended up finding another guy who was living in New Jersey from the DR. Somehow he managed to get to know this guy, and I guess they had conversations. And so that man's wife told me that there were 3 children before my son was born. And so that's how I ended up confirming it, because at that point, I had the other suspicion from the phone call. And then this woman who doesn't know any of us from anything, we were just meeting her for the first time, but obviously her husband and mine had been talking over the phone, and she found out some stuff. And so she was kind enough to tell me what was really going on, which I thank her for to this day. And so that's how I really confirmed it. And at that point, that's when I was like really upset that he had lied to me and basically hid all these children, and even had his family in on helping him hide them. Once I found that out, looking back on things, then it was like, oh, there were certain little things that happened that kind of clued me in. But, as you say, hindsight is 2020. Like one time I showed up unexpectedly, and like his father kind of whisked me away down to the bar and was like, oh, come on, let's go to the bar and let's have some drinks or whatever. Come to find out later, his kids were at the house where I had showed up.
What?
And so that's why his father whisked me away to the bar. But like, I didn't think about it. And then he confessed to me, my ex-husband confessed to me later that that's why they kind of grabbed me up and took me down to the corner bar to have drinks that night, because his kids were there. So it was a whole mess.
When you brought all this to him and now it's out that there's 3 other kids, did he ever tell you, like, here's why I did it? Here's why I lied?
He did. He said that he knew that I was still young and that I didn't have any children, and that if I had found out that he had 3 children already, that I may not have wanted to date him, which is very true because at that time, at that time, I was 26 and I always wanted to have a man that had his first child with me and that didn't have all those responsibilities kind of hanging over his head. So he's probably right about that. That I probably would not have dated him or continued the relationship in all honesty. But, denying your kids that's kind of deep. You know what I mean? Like that's real deep. So
If you hadn't found out, do you think he would have ever told you?
I think he would have dragged that out to as long as he possibly could. If to this day I could not know, he would probably have dragged it out this long.
Wow.
I mean, that's just what I assume. I don't know, but there is a certain level of people kind of thinking that when they come to the United States that everything is going to be easy. So you should get here at all costs, no matter who you have to step on or hurt or whatever to do it, get there at all costs. And then I think when he got here, he realized it wasn't as easy as he thought. There was a lot of cultural differences. He would need to get a job, but he didn't speak a lot of English. And so there were a lot of things that, weren't as easy for him as maybe he thought, like, that he was just going to be able to step outside the front door and start pulling dollar bills off the trees, and, but it wasn't like that. It was a lot of work. And I don't know that he was prepared for that. And I don't know that he wanted to have to go through all that on top of having the cultural differences in our relationship, because a lot of the men in, the Dominican Republic is a very machismo society. So when you think about the way they're raised, women are often the ones kind of at home keeping things together in the house, and the men are out getting the money. But in our case, I was making more money. And so I'm obviously not going to be ordered around by someone, not because I just make more money, but like I'm an independent person.
Right.
And so just kind of having someone telling me what to do because they feel like that's their job, especially if some of the things that he's telling me to do doesn't make sense, then that's where we kind of clash a lot,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there was a lot of expectation that I was going to be just like the ladies that maybe he was used to dating and being with, where they just kind of do what he says do because he's making all the money and he has all the power in the relationship. But I wanted a shared power
Right.
in the relationship, and he wasn't really interested in that. You know what I mean? I think it was just the culture clash was really big in our relationship. So
So after you found out about the other children, did you immediately move towards a divorce or were you going to try to work it out?
no, I didn't move towards the divorce right away. I didn't really know how to handle the situation at the time, but I thought that since I had gone through all of the trouble of getting him here and moving there to learn his language and having his son and all that kind of stuff, I said, well, let's just try to work it out and see if we can move past the fact that he lied the whole time we were together and try to get to some other place in our relationship of like forgiveness or whatever. And so we kept going and he ended up getting a job and everything. But again, that's where the cultural clashes were, they were the king in the relationship. The culture clashes were really what broke us up, I think, in a lot of ways.
Even more so than the lies.
The lies were big because, like, the mistrust that happens after a lie like that, and the fact that one of the children is around the same age as my son, there's a lot of things that come with lying like that. And you don't know if you're ever going to be able to trust that person again once
Yeah.
they come out with whoppers like that. And so, as much as I wanted to try, I knew that between the mistrust and the cultural differences, it was kind of a losing battle. It wasn't one that I was willing to continue fighting, especially if I was going to be fighting it by myself. When my son was 5 months old, he
Mhm.
moved to Rhode Island, and then he came back down for his first birthday in October of 2009. And I had the divorce papers ready to go for him, to sign before he went back to Rhode Island. And he did, he didn't cause a scene or try to, keep it going or whatever. And I was thankful for that as well.
Yeah.
That it wasn't going to be something we had to fight or make any, because I'm all about keeping things peaceful and making sure that at the end of the day, my son is, the number one thing in the relationship. So once the relationship ended, I still wanted my son to be able to have a relationship with his father. That was of utmost importance for me. Whether or not I was mad at his father or could trust him or any of that stuff, it had nothing to do with my son's relationship with his father.
Right.
I know what it feels like to grow up without a father. And so I didn't want that for my son. So if that meant that, sometime later we had to move to Puerto Rico in order for my son to be able to speak Spanish, to have a conversation with his father and be closer to him than, we were in Philadelphia where we were living at the time, I was willing to do that
Mhm.
because I want my son to know that he is loved regardless of whether his parents, can make a relationship work.
Right.
So that's kind of how it all ended. And we're still good co-parents. I do most of the parenting, obviously, because my son lives with me, but they have their relationship and hopefully can continue cultivating that.
Does your son have a relationship with his other siblings?
He does. I mean, as much as you can have it when you don't live together, they call and video chat with each other. And when he goes to the Dominican Republic, they play and have a nice time and stuff. So, they have a good relationship. And honestly, so at the end of the day, my ex-husband has 7 kids. He has
Oh,
3.
wow.
Yeah, there's 3 before my son, then there's my son, and now he's in a new relationship and he has 3 more. You know, I don't have any animosity towards my ex-husband. Like, what's important to me is like, what can I pull out of this situation? What
Mhm.
what can I learn from it? And I learned so much from that relationship, like from what red flags to look for, what I need to feel in a relationship to be comfortable, what a good relationship looks and feels like for me, and what isn't. And all of these things I learned from being in that relationship. And so I can't complain. Like, yes, it was a difficult experience when it was going on, but I learned so much. So that's at the end of the
Wow.
day, that's what it is. That's the main important thing.
What would you say the biggest lesson from that relationship and how it all unfolded was?
I would say keep your eyes open. I think so often in relationships, what we do is like we'll see things like little red flags or things, and we'll try to explain it away and tell ourselves why what we're thinking and feeling is probably not true and all that kind of stuff. And I think we need to just step back from like trying to put our positive spin on red flags, and just stand in what it is. Don't tell yourself a story about what it could be and what happened when somebody else's situation went through that. Like, what is it for you? If you see something that doesn't make sense, it's probably either not true or it's not something that you should be trying to make yourself feel comfortable with. And
Right.
so, get comfortable enough in yourself to be able to walk away from things that don't make sense or that are not seeming like they're adding up, and don't be afraid to ask questions. That's the other thing. Like, don't be afraid to ask people questions. If somebody walks away or gets mad because you ask them why or what they're doing or what you don't understand something, then that's probably not the person for you anyway,
And love doesn't mean accepting everything. I think sometimes,
Right.
especially when love is new and this person is new and, we just love so much about them, we think that means we need to accept certain things. So it's like we see it, we know it's a red flag, we know there's questions. And then in your mind, you might be like, but I really love him. You kind of excuse it in that moment just based on the love and completely put logic out the window. Because, if it were somebody else in the same situation, you'd be like,
Exactly.
but it's you and you're in love. You're like, but love.
Yes, you are so right. Like, I can't tell you how many times in life, I've looked at a situation that somebody else was in and was like, what, why can't she see blah, blah, blah. But then when you're in the thick of it, it's very hard to see. But
Yep.
like, if you can step back and kind of look at something from the perspective that you're looking at it as a friend to someone else, I think you'll get a more clear view of what's really going on in the situation, and like you said, stop trying to excuse it, and tell yourself that you must be wrong or whatever. Because, 9 times out of 10, like you said earlier, that sixth sense that you have of like knowing that something is not right, I believe like we need to start following that, you know
100%.
all of the experiences that we have help us to better discern situations for the future. And so, like, trust yourself that you've learned the lessons that you need to learn and that you can now see things from how you're supposed to see them, and be able to look at them in a way that protects yourself, but without being like overly protective and keeping your walls up, but like, keeping your eyes open.
A lot of the times when people go through situations like that, it sticks with them and they have a hard time getting into another relationship because they think, well, the same thing's going to happen again. I trusted him and look how that turned out. And so they have a really hard time moving forward. After that relationship with your ex, how were you able to move forward and be able to have trust with other people in the future?
It's not an easy thing. I think that you have to be willing and like make a conscious effort. We can continue carrying and adding baggage every time we have a bad relationship. And then we end up with this big old suitcase of baggage, when all we have to do is kind of like, okay, treat everyone as an individual. Every man that you meet is not the same as the one that you had that lied to you or did you wrong. So if we treat each person on their own merits and based my experience of that person, keep yourself open and remind yourself every time. Like every time you feel that wall coming up, just saying, I can't treat him like he was the other guy. He's not the other guy.
So, what is next for you?
For me, I'm still like doing my dating and like, I'm just looking for love still and being open and trying to keep myself open to whatever comes along within reason. And when I say being open to whatever comes along, that does not mean settling. I think as Black women, there's often this expectation that if we want a certain type of man, like with a certain type of income or a certain this or a certain that, that we're being gold diggers and whatever, then we should just accept anybody that loves us or likes us or whatever, and not put all of the security and safety and things like that we want to feel from other aspects of the man aside, because we're supposedly the most uncoupled, that we should just like accept, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm so tired of that.
And that goes back to what we were saying with it can't just be, well, I love him or he loves me, so everything else doesn't matter. Everything else goes out the window. Like, no, love
Yeah.
is just, that's the minimum. Like, you
Yes.
love me, I love you, great. But is
Right.
everything there that we need in order to build a life together?
Right.
If not, love is
Right.
not going to fix it. Love is the beginning.
I'm past the stage of my life where I'm dating potential. Like I'm looking for somebody that has what I need today. And so that's where I'm focusing all of my efforts and my, all of my mental capacities when it comes to dating is looking to have relationships and connections with men who I can see myself being compatible with today. Not tomorrow, not, oh, well, once he does this or that or the other, he'll be a great match.
You have to go with what is happening today. Who are you today? Who are they today? Don't think about tomorrow. Right now, is this the person that is right for you?
Really, when you think about it, it's not fair for you to say, okay, once he is this or that or the other, because it's like you're sort of projecting and saying that, trying to force somebody to be something or wishing that they'll be something else and not allowing them to kind of just grow into the person that they want to be. Like the whole time that you're wishing for, oh, well, once he finishes his degree or once he gets a better job, like, so you're always going to be pushing for him to do something that maybe that's not his destiny.
Yep.
So if you just love somebody for, if you find the person that you can love how they are today, then you don't have to worry about what they are going to be tomorrow, what you want them to be tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, thank you for coming on today and sharing these gems. I love how you're dating and your whole way of going about it and just, being open to the possibilities, but also understanding what you want and not settling for less than that.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed talking to you and sharing my little stories. And I hope that, everyone out there can find the love that they want and that, you can continue coaching people and sharing your stories and your gems.
And where can people reach you and find your YouTube and stuff?
On YouTube, I'm under Larhonda Turner, Larhonda Turner, Turner. And on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at Larhonda Turner, same spelling. So, please follow my YouTube page, channel. If you like some of the videos, please let me know in the comments.
Awesome. And thank you guys for tuning in today. You can reach me at Tanisha Wood on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And until next time, wish me love.
Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.